number one, the first thing that we have to do is explain to people on the pull plan, what are the conditions of satisfaction for this pull plan? So we pre-populated this. It looks like we have in here the sequence for the roofing, eaves, and metal framing. We're going to do one zone. It'll be kind of high level, detailed enough for a weekly work plan, meaning enough for you to detail out your activities. And we want the best estimate for your duration. So we're going to decide on zoning first. Then we are going to fill out our activities. Then we're going to run a backwards pass. And so these rules are here for us to say, hey, we're all on the same page with how we're going to run this pull plan. So the colors for the pull plan will be the LeanTakt purple, Wilming blue, roof activities are green, eaves is orange, and metal framing is the light blue. Here's how we're going to do the stickies. I'm just going to do duration, activity, and that's all we need for the activities when we do our forward pass. When we do it backwards, I'm then going to ask you, what do you need to have happen out ahead of you for that activity to take place? So as we do the sequence forward, we're just building a sequence. But when we actually do that in the reverse, as we go in the reverse, we're going to make sure that the sequence is filled out based on not just the sequence, but the things that you need to do that activity. We're looking at the eaves phase map. It looks like we have 4 proposed zones. For the curtain wall, it looks like we have 3. And then for the eaves, it looks like there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then those probably tie together on the takt plan. These 2 zones probably correspond to this one. And these 2 zones down here probably correspond to just this one. And that's how you overlap them with the other work. All right. And then for the roof, it was broken out into these general areas because of height. So what we need to do is just do a preliminary check. And so I'm going to go one by one on these. So eaves, this is our first zone for the foundations and structure. This is our second zone generally, and this is our third zone. Our interiors and structures progress is happening in that direction. So based on that, what we're asking just from a preliminary standpoint, and I'm assuming, Ricardo, that the red would be the first zone, and then would the yellow be the second one?
Correct, yeah.
Third and fourth, what we're saying by zoning is that you would plan, build that zone or that run of exterior, and then when you're done, finish before you move on to the other zone so that another contractor can come behind you if need be. So all we're asking is, if we broke it out into 4 zones, would that work for you to plan your work, build it while you're there, and finish before you move on to other zones in your work?
Yes, it will work.
Everything here in blue, you'd like to scaffold that all at once, is that correct?
Yes, if
Okay.
possible.
We're going to frame everything off of lifts and hang everything off of lifts.
So you'll be inside.
Lifts off the outside. Going over here to curtain wall generally, if I understand this right, it would be the first install, second install, third install as we run around the building. So it goes like, okay, so we don't need to do this one right now. The smaller the zone sizes we go to, the faster we typically go in the overall schedule. We like to keep options to where we could maybe later on make them a little bit smaller. This right here is a calculator. Takt wagons over here to the left, you can consider those general activities, like large scopes of activities. Let's say that on the exterior you had 15 major activities and we have 4 zones, and let's just say the general duration for the activity was 5 days. So we have 15 major activities in 4 zones on a takt time of 5. What I want to show everybody just real quick, when you look at the numbers here, what that means. If you did have 15 major activities, which we'll find out now, 4 zones on a 5-day takt time, the duration of the exterior install would be 90 days. If you changed it to 6 zones, it would go down to 80. So this column right here calculates the overall duration of what happens if you do different zoning strategies. So I think we'll start the pull plan out at 4 zones, a little bit on the higher end. And if this project ever gets into trouble and we hit a delay, I'm thinking we could always go to a 6-zone strategy to pick up time. Matt and the LeanTakt team, does that sound okay to you all? Am I heading in the right direction with that?
Yeah. The question, I guess, if you just create more activities more zones, wouldn't you need to double up manpower, essentially?
I mean, how are you picking up 10 days just by making zones smaller and having zones?
Ooh, I like that question. So there's this really neat image here. I love this image right here. So this pertains to our pull plan. So I'm really glad we're having this discussion. Let's say that this was 40,000 square foot of building, or whatever you want to call it. And you had blue contractor, yellow, purple, green, red, orange. If you have the contractors go behind each other and you just give each contractor 40,000 square foot, it's going to take 70 days. But if you break it up into 2 zones, it goes down to 41. If you break it up into 3, it goes to 37. If you break it up into 4, it goes to 31. And you'll see the best option is to break it up into 5 zones, and it finishes in 23 days. I do want to make something clear. This 5-zone strategy is the same amount of work, same labor counts, same material amounts. The only thing that's different is the zone sizes, and the only other thing that's different is that you need materials sooner because you're accomplishing the work sooner. So one of the things I'd like to show everybody is that in this top option, this blue contractor had 10 days. Well, if you come down here to the 5-zone strategy, that contractor still has 10 days. So same amount of work, same labor count, same material amounts, and I'll actually add one in here, same duration. The only thing that's different is how you configure your zone. Did that answer the question?
Yes.
Yes,
Thank
it
you.
did. Perfect.
Wonderful. All we're trying to do with different zoning strategies is have a way to pull the schedule in if we ever need to that does not hurt you. So yeah, that's all we're looking for. My point with this is that I think that the 4-zone strategy could be our default, and then the 6 zones, if we ever needed to, we could go smaller as a backup and recover from a delay. When you go back to the calculator, I just wanted to show you what happens here. If I said, hey, let's go ahead and do this 6-zone strategy and hit this button, if you ever wanted to do this and check the general contractor you're working for, this calculator is free on LeanTakt.com. But what you can see here is that if we had 4 zones, this is what the duration would be. And if we go to 6 zones, you'll see what it looks like down here and where we gain those 10 days. Okay, so we're set. We're generally going to do 4 zones and we're going to erect the scaffolding. Let's maybe just get right into the exterior and let's do our pull plans. We are only going to pull plan 1 zone. We're going to come up here and we're going to create a sequence just for the red. And what I'd like to do, just high level, what is the general phasing of trades? Is it framing, sheathing, eaves? The water barrier is a part of the eaves process, is that correct?
Yeah.
Then you have fascia, drip head. And then are there any windows or curtain wall that go in after the eaves?
Yep, they all do.
Okay, windows and curtain wall. So this is our general high level sequence. So I'm just going to use this as a guide. All right, well, everybody get ready. We are in our pull plan right now. For the framer, what do you expect when you get there?
I just need all the decking shot down. If any duct openings or anything in the walls laid out before I get there.
That's going to be your conditions of satisfaction. All right, once you get there, just for the red zone, what's the first thing you do, boss?
Well, I got to lay it out and then shoot down track.
Okay, how long does layout take?
Oh, it'll probably take me a day or 2 to lay it out.
Okay, just for the red zone, right?
Yeah.
And then shoot down track. Top, is that bottom track and top track?
Yes.
How many days?
Probably 2 days of shooting track and then 6 days of framing. So 10 days total.
All right, what happens after framing, team?
Sheathing.
How long for sheathing, my brother? And is there any overlap?
7 days for that area.
So once sheathing's done, Eves, is that you next?
Yes,
Tell me what you got. What is your first step in your process?
scaffold. It'll take me for that probably 2 days.
And then what happens after you build scaffolding?
Weather barrier,
How many days?
2 days.
Envelope, testing.
Yep.
Okay, and maybe it's just an inspection, either one. And then actually, before I forget, you probably have to do an inspection after framing and sheathing. Is that right, guys?
Yep.
What happens after your envelope testing and weather barrier?
Start sticking foam.
All right, how many days for that?
I'll say in the elevation 2-3 days.
Okay, 3 days. All right, what happens after that?
That's rasping.
How many days?
3.
Okay, perfect. What happens after that?
Base coat, mesh. It's gonna take me 2 days.
What happens after that?
Color, say 2 days. Max.
Let's go over to the roofing contractor. So the roofing, give me a roof color, LeanTakt team. How many days do you need to do your fascia and drip edge?
For fascia, just that zone, 4 days, 7 days with drip edge.
And does it overlap or is it just...
Yeah, so we're gonna do about 150 linear feet of fascia,
Okay.
then follow it up with a drip edge.
I'm going to do something here real quick. Is that kind of a representation of what you're doing?
Yes.
All right, how many days does it take to drop scaffolding?
2 days.
A couple days, okay. I'm going to lock all of the background and I'm going to copy this over and look at, is there an ideal rhythm from area to area? So this is always how pole planning was supposed to go, is we were supposed to make sure that we have the right stagger from zone to zone to zone. So I'm going to do something that might look just a little bit haphazard, and I'm just going to start to look for patterns. So the sequence that we just created, I'm just going to bring out some data. When we do pole plans, in my opinion, it doesn't really matter how well we're flowing left to right, because that doesn't take care of trade partners. I care how are we flowing from area to area to area so that the trade partner has flow. So the layout and then shoot down track, that is on like a 4-day stagger, but it looks like the framing here is on a 6-day. So a 6-day.
Essentially, when I'm done with the first 4 days, I could move to the next area. I see where you're going.
Yes, let me show you what you could do. Like if you're the first one out of the gate, your layout and your track crew, or however you're going to do that, is like at a 4-day rhythm. But if the framing has to be finished to start, you're like on a 6-day rhythm. The sheathing looks like 7 days, but I bet a day of overlap wouldn't hurt you too much. So that looks okay. For EIFS, which is the most critical? So I'm sure color, base coat, and rasping are important, right? Is that your most critical part of your duration?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. It feels to me like a 6-day stagger from zone to zone would take care of you pretty well, because you could go faster on the outset for layout and track, and then for framing, you go basically from one area to the second area to the third area to the fourth. For sheathing, for you, Brady, all it would mean is when you're finishing up your sheathing in one area, you're already starting on another area. So if that overlap is possible, then that will work.
Oh yeah, that's fine.
All right, so then it would be build scaffolding, and actually the build scaffolding would be for both areas, so you wouldn't even have it here. You would basically start your weather barrier and do your envelope testing. There would be a break, meaning a delay behind that, but once you actually started rasping, you would go down and flow, but when you're finishing the color, your crew would start rasping the next zone. Does that overlap there freak you out, or is that okay?
That's okay.
And then over here, what it would mean is fascia, and we could go to a 7-day stagger. I just want everybody to know fascia and then drip edge. Basically, you would do your work and then flow down here, but you have this little overlap between your final drip edge and the fascia on the new area. And so here's what I'm saying. It looks like we have 1 day of overlap here, 1 day of overlap here, 1 day of overlap here, and then everything else works out. Or I could go to a 7-day stagger. So the direct question I'm asking is everybody okay initially with this 6-day stagger, or do we feel like you need more time and we want to move it to 7?
6 is fine.
Okay, Armando?
I'll say 7.
All right, let's do it with 6. And then Armando, we do want to listen to you. If it doesn't work when we're done, we'll dig into it. So I'm going to stick with this one line. I think I know where we're headed. We're going to go through the sequence backwards and make sure it's 100%. Once we do that, we'll look at the diagonal flow and then we're done. Let's go backwards. So drop scaffolding. I need you to at least come up with 2 things that you're going to need in order for that to work. What would you need to drop your scaffolding?
Well, we can move that right after fascia, because the drip edge, we could do it off of the roof.
Oh, okay. All right, perfect. So we'll do that. So drip edge, what 2 things do you need in order for you to install your drip edge?
We're just waiting on ourselves at that point for the drip edge. We're installing fascia.
So you need the fascia installed?
The EVIS needs to be done, right?
Oh, EIFS complete? Okay. If I put on here a need and I've got stickies to the left that satisfy that need, I'm going to put a Y for yes. So let's look at this. So fascia installed. Yep, we've got an activity for that. For the EIFS complete, we've got an activity for that. Fascia, what do you need for that to go well?
The EFS is the color.
Is there any cleanup here that would prevent fascia from happening just the next day?
As long as we wait a good 12 hours and let it dry.
12 hours, so overnight. Weather barrier, what things do you need to be done?
Make sure everything, my substrate is clean. My corners and everything are acceptable after dents. The hanging dents, glass and everything. Penetration, so nice and flush.
Okay, so I'm just looking here, so I'm just going to check a couple of these things off. So we have the EIFS, so I'm putting check marks on anything that we've included in our pull plan. The fascia, a drip edge. What was the thing we just added?
Gutters.
Go ahead and write that up there up top for me. What about exterior doors? Are we putting that into this pull plan, Matt, or are we doing that later?
We're gonna have to do that later.
Windows we'll do later. The garage door we'll do later. So Danny, give me a note for doors, windows. Danny, you'll put MEP rough in and cutouts. I'm just looking on the exterior to see if we're missing anything else that's open, or that's probably a curtain wall. We're good. So garage door we'll do later, doors we'll do later, windows we'll do later, MEP. Okay, so we need to put in MEP back here, but we'll get to that. First and foremost, gutters.
So it goes fascia, gutter, drip edge.
And how long does the gutter take?
Just do 5 days.
Here's what we need to figure out here. As an overlap, how much can it overlap with fascia? When you see this, like, do you need drip edge to move to the right or the left, or the gutter to move to the right or the left?
To the right.
Gutter, how far to the right do you need moved?
Day 37.
And then when you do
Same thing for drip edge. Day 42.
day 42. Oh, are you sure that's not too conservative?
I think it is. Let's put it to 40. You have 3 days of hanging gutter before you can start putting in your drip edge, so that should be good.
Let's
Does that
put
work?
it to 45.
So put it to 45. All right,
You just lost another day. 38 it is. 38 it is.
and then going back over here, you need penetrations complete. Where do the MEP cutouts need to go? When does that happen? Does it happen right after framing or the last 2 days of framing?
It needs to happen before the sheathing.
Before the sheathing? Okay.
Any penetrate.
Okay, so probably right there. Build scaffolding, we're good. Sheathing, cleanup. So I put an activity in here for the framer for cleanup to take care of this need, substrate clean. For sheathing, what do you need, boss, to be successful?
I need all the duct openings and everything framed out, and insulation if there's going to be insulation.
Insulation on the structure.
There's some insulation needed.
Okay, insulation for the structure, and then duct penetrations.
All the openings framed in the wall.
Okay. All right, so over here, I'm going to put as a predecessor. So we need all decking shot down, MEP layout for walls, and then I'm going to put something else over here that says, okay, insulation complete. So I'll put those in here. All right, so that's good. And both of those are picked up now. The MEP homies aren't in here, but if they need something, we'll address that. And then for framing, it's probably the same thing, but I'm just going to ask you, this is the last thing. To shoot down your track, you'll probably need layout. But is there anything else that you need to do your layout or shoot your track down other than decking, MEP?
I need all the concrete or stem walls.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to get that right now. Stem walls. Okay. Team, it looks like we have a decent pull plan and a sequence. Is there any concurrent work that can happen here, or is this all finished to start? So here's what I'm saying. It's layout, and then you have shoot down track, and then you have framing, and then you have sheathing. Is that all finished to start like it's shown, or do you want any overlap here?
Yeah, no, I don't want any overlap right now.
All right, building scaffolding. I'm assuming you can't build the scaffolding until the sheathing is done. So for the eaves, is there any concurrent work here? Like, is there anything that can go parallel, or is this exactly how you want the sequence?
That's exactly the sequence.
Okay, perfect. Fascia, gutter, and drip edge. I'm going to ask that same thing to you. Does this work?
Yes.
All right, well then we're going to copy this down. And we're doing it on a 6-day stagger. Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, perfect. All right, I just want to show you how this shakes out. If we're on a 6-day stagger, so right now, Brady, I need you to, your layout and track can, as long as the structure is done, probably go faster. And so what you would have is flow from area to area. You would just be able to flow from area to area to area. Okay, all right, so framing, you have a nice flow from area to area in your 6 days, so that shouldn't be a problem. MEP, I'm assuming they'll be around the job anyway, so they don't have ideal flow, but this isn't abnormal for them to come in at different times, right? Sheathing, we're jamming. Oh, and actually, yeah, all you have is 1 day overlap for sheathing. Does that work for you, Brady?
Yeah, that works.
Building scaffolding, I remember, we don't need this one here, sorry. Building scaffolding, and then you have your weather barrier and envelope testing. And then when you actually start sticking foam, rasping, and doing the color, you have 1 day of overlap, but you generally flow from area to area. And then for fascia, you've got fascia and fascia, gutter, and then a little bit of a buffer before you hit this other gutter, so you have like just 1 day. And then for drip edge, yeah, you have like just 1 day of a buffer in here going at that rhythm. Is everybody fine with how you're flowing from area to area?
Yes.
Okay, all right. The last thing that I want to say is when you take scaffold down, do you have enough scaffold for the whole building, or are you only bringing out enough for half?
Well, I always put 70% of the building. Well, that north side probably could move it over. I mean,
Yeah, to use this scaffolding is just an option for our metal department. We could always use the boom lift if it conflicts with the EFIS schedule.
Okay, so, but I'm just going to simulate this real quick. I just want everybody to see it. We can analyze that right now. So 4, 5, 6. So I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, you would have to have 3/4 of the whole building in scaffolding because you're not dropping the north area by the time you would need to have it over here area. So basically what we're saying is that you would have this whole scaffolded and this whole scaffolded, and then you would set this up before it comes down. Okay, so that's totally fine for you?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, this is our plan. This is our pull plan. The schedule that's going to go on the master schedule is going to be, we have a 4-day stagger for the original track, and then everything else is on a 6-day rhythm throughout the exteriors, and that's what's going to go on the master schedule. And so what I'm trying to tell everybody is just when you get to the job and you're looking at your weekly work plan and coordinating with Matt and Tracy and the team, your look aheads and your weekly work plans will be filtered from this plan. And what we're attempting to do is maintain this flow for you so that you can have your crews run in that really nice flow. So that's how we create our weekly work plan. So awesome. So this should protect you guys out in the field. I think we're done.